Creating wellness in a pandemic world is our talk tonight. In the Wall Street Journal today, they had an article about saying that Express Scripts has a 34% increase in anti-anxiety medications from February to March this year. I think that's a reflection of the stress people are feeling through this whole pandemic today. Now, I'm Dr. Marty Furlong. I'm with Metro East Natural Healing Center, and I have with me today is Amy. And Amy, you're a mental health therapist, aren't you? And then what's your specialty? How'd you get into it?
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me here today. So, my health journey began 10 years ago when I was experiencing some personal health challenges, and it led me on a path of health and wellness to both help myself personally as well as others. So, since then, I've gotten a master's degree in nutrition and health psychology. I've done some yoga training as well, and so I'm a licensed professional counselor and currently working as a mental health therapist at Minnesota Clinic for Health and Wellness. And wow. I have a strong interest in nutrition, and I've personally been on a nutrition response testing program for the past 2.5 years. And I've also done a little bit of, have gone through some training myself and some nutrition response testing. So it's important for me to take a holistic perspective to health, both personally and with my clients. So it's fun to be here with you today talking about both nutrition and mental health.
Absolutely. That's great. Boy, great qualifications. Patients are in good hands with you for sure. Now, this is like a tough time in our history and very unique. In the 30 plus years I've been in practice, I have not seen a time like this with our patients, the wear and tear and the stress. Now, what have you seen with your client base? What are some of the things they're experiencing that causes stress for them?
Sure. Yeah. Definitely this has been a really tough time for so many people and their mental health. Like many others, I've had clients who've lost their jobs, who have been furloughed. People are they're having to adapt to working from home, having children around, getting used to just other family members being around. They're missing out on activities that they're used to engaging in and socializing with others, so feeling a lot of isolation. I think no matter what your situation, we've all had to adjust in various ways as we've shifted kind of out of our normal day-to-day routines. And this has caused most of us to feel out of balance in some way. So I've seen a variety of responses from, both my clients and other people I know personally. I've had some who have been, managing pretty well, and others who have been struggling more with everything going on. And, I think some of this is dependent maybe a little bit on personality type, whether they're more naturally introverted, so it doesn't feel as difficult staying home more, compared to the extroverted folks.
Boy, Amy, that's it. Some patients are so happy to be home, aren't they?
Right. Yeah, I've had some, who say, "Oh, I'm meant for this. I've been training for this my whole life." So it's interesting how that can play a big, difference in how people are responding to this, just their general personality versus those who are very extroverted, and it's day one that they're home and they're like, oh my goodness, I need to see people. What am I going to do? How do I connect with others? So,
totally. So we see very similar things in our clinic where we always test our patients for 3 things: physical, chemical, and emotional. And the emotional component has just been going through the roof with our patients. It's slowing down their healing. It's complicating their health. Now, the reason I want to bring you out, because you have so many great training background skills, are there coping mechanisms that are available for these patients to start dealing with some of this? And that's without lots of heavy medication. And are there coping mechanisms, coping skills that you can share?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's interesting now, just in the past week or so, we've seen a little bit more opening up of businesses. So our conversation might start to be a little bit different today versus a few weeks, months ago, as far as what people are needing or what's helpful. People might be feeling a little relief knowing that we're opening up somewhat, but I think there's still a lot of anxiety, especially about the future of COVID, what this means in both the near future and beyond. So Yeah, our brains definitely like to have answers, and we feel more comfort when we have them. So when there are just no official answers or timelines, it can feel really stressful. So it's important that we do have some kind of skills and tools to lean on. So, I mean, there's been a lot of resources and suggestions that have for coping that have been put out by the CDC, from general mental health organizations, many others. So a lot of us have probably heard of a variety of suggestions and ways to cope. You know, some of them, again, we're familiar with, of exercising and taking care of our body, limiting the amount of news intake. There's been, we're seeing so much, right? Yeah, we're getting so much news constantly. And so sometimes it's hard to shut that off a little bit and take a break from it, and finding ways to kind of stay connected with others as we can. So, so they're, in talking about balance, so we're talking about balance kind of in particular. So something I thought, might be helpful to take a look at too is called the Healthy Mind Platter. So I have a little visual here called the Healthy Mind Platter.
Okay.
So this is, I'll kind of put it up here if you want to see it a little bit. So, so Dr. Dan Siegel, he is an expert in mental health, in the mental health field, and author of several books. So he developed this kind of mental health platter. So it's not specific to COVID, but it is kind of a helpful resource. And he calls these kind of the 7 nutrients of a healthy mind. So kind of
and keeping it healthy.
Right? Yeah. So kind of fitting for us. So, we can kind of touch on these a little bit. So there's focus time. So when we closely focus on tasks in a goal-oriented way, we take on challenges and make deep connections in the brain. So we're kind of focusing, whether you're just focusing on a project outside or, your work or whatever it is you're doing.
I'm assuming completion of that project is a different level of satisfaction in your brain. So
yep. So so kind of just that being able to have that focus time. We also have then let's see, what else is there? We have physical time. I'm trying to go in order here. So obviously, like moving our bodies in whatever helpful ways that is. Sleep time, we all know, that how helpful sleep is for our brain and just otherwise. So that's
Amy, I'm going to back up to exercise time or movement time. So I had a patient ask me, I'll tell you who it is. It's my wife. She said, what's the best exercise?
Yeah.
And the answer was, whatever you enjoy, because some people like running, other people like walking, biking, yoga, whatever it is. So I agree with that one. You're getting that movement time. Something you enjoy is huge. And sleep, so what's going with sleep? Did you have any other comments on sleep?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard. I think one thing, that is maybe happening right now is because, say people are not, say you're not working right now, maybe it feels like, okay, I don't have to get up in the morning. So while maybe in the past you were running out to a job and other activities, you might have been getting maybe very little sleep. Where now you might be maybe you're just staying in bed for a lot of the day because you're thinking, okay, well, there's nothing that I really need to do right now, and so I'm just going to keep sleeping, or kind of just feeling down. Sometimes that happens when our mood feels down, then we just stay in bed. So again, kind of thinking about this idea of balance, we can think of it like, sometimes I think of it like a teeter-totter, where we kind of go, we can go back and forth. We've all probably been on a teeter-totter at some point. So that you kind of it takes a little bit to balance. And sometimes you might, go from one side then to the other. And so again, with the example of sleep, if maybe you were on the side of, you used to not be getting very much sleep at all because you were running around busy or for whatever reason. And then maybe now you're getting a lot of sleep and maybe a little too much sleep, and you've kind of tipped to the other side of the teeter-totter. So, kind of the idea with balance then is we're trying to move that teeter-totter back and forth and see if we can kind of have less movement and get it more to that balanced place. Sometimes for us to find the balance, we have to kind of tip from one side to the other in order to feel that. So that's, I think, the kind of approach that is maybe helpful with, in looking at the healthy mind platter. And a lot of these is kind of assessing, with sleep, physical time, focus time, time in, downtime, playtime, connecting time, like, where are you at with all of these? Which ones feel, do any of them feel in balance? So, like, which ones feel out of balance? And where, how can you kind of find, assess where your teeter-totter's at, and how can you kind of try to find a little more balance in those?
Absolutely. Those are great. No, those are absolutely what body needs. I always talk about schedule, having a regular schedule. It sounds kind of boring, but bodies love schedules. We're on a schedule, circadian rhythm, right? Going to bed at a certain time, waking up a certain time. To stay on a schedule, it's kind of, the balance thing, I believe. So
exactly. I think you're right. I think that has thrown all of us kind of off, out of balance, because I think for the most part, our schedule has changed somewhat. Even if maybe we're working from home, but it still kind of caused our schedule and routine to change up a little bit. I know that's happened for me, trying to figure out, okay, how do I find a new routine at home? And how do I like to practice yoga, and I used to go to a studio, and now I can't go there. And so I'm, trying to figure out, okay, I'm trying to log into classes, but then there's technology issues, so it just kind of feels hard to sometimes get into that rhythm and routine in a different setting. So kind of allowing yourself that time to kind of redevelop that.
That's right. Amy, we talked earlier on this, and it was all news to me. I mean, like, this is great tech, great stuff you have. You had talked about present time consciousness. And I thought, wow, okay, there's something I don't think I've ever had great tools about. But I love the thought, because it really did to bring you into present time.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to expand on that one at all? I mean, that was such a great concept.
Yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot on this one, too.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so we were kind of talking about mindfulness. Yeah, right.
Mindfulness, yes.
Yeah. So about being present and kind of aware of what's happening, what you're doing. And that is, a super helpful concept, and something both now and, whether it's COVID or not. But one of the things that's helpful is kind of checking in with, like, how you're feeling, where am I at? Like, it could be physically, how am I feeling? How am I feeling emotionally? And because there's so much anxiety right now. So when we get kind of really stuck on thinking about the future and what might happen, especially in this example of COVID, and we don't know, it's easy to get stuck in that, to spiral. Or we could get stuck kind of in the past, thinking about, what we used to be able to do, or this or that. So either way, when we're like thinking about the future a lot, that brings anxiety, right?
Totally.
That brings out the anxiety. When we're thinking about the past and getting kind of stuck there, it brings depression. And so when we can bring our mind back to the present and what's happening now and how we're feeling, what's going on, then that's where we're in the present, and that can bring that calmer state and can kind of help keep us out of both of those sides of anxiety and depression.
Yeah, I love that. I love that discussion. You brought it up. I thought, wow, that's powerful what you're saying on that one. That's a great one.
Yeah.
So I might jump in here a little bit. You okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. So when we look at a body in our clinic, we're looking at physical, chemical, emotional, and we're talking about emotional stuff, but the chemical end, you touched on the physical end. The chemical end is really our expertise and our black belt on this in our clinic. And we find that when we do what's called nutrition response tests, we have Chelsea is one of our practitioners here. We have our health coaches. We describe as Angie and Angie. That's both their names, our health coaches. So when we start working with a patient in a chemical sense, when we say chemical, it's what they eat, breathe, and drink. And once they start managing a body, all of a sudden things become easier in life. Okay, if they're not poisoning themselves with processed foods and things in their body that don't nourish their body, can be a big problem. And through nutrition response testing, we can find out what is poison in their body. Might be different for each person. And with that, we can use supplements to support healing again. So what can happen is if someone were to take a lot of processed, short of a better term, junk, in my world, my body, I call poison because that's what it does to me. It will suck the nutritional reserves out of my cells. And all of a sudden, my cells are kind of empty, and they'll primarily it's minerals that get sucked out of me when I have these things. And also my neurologic processes won't work as well. Anxiety, depression are the results of this. And so by putting in proper nutrients again, we think about, a couple of things we'll use, a thing called Mintran. It's mineral tranquilizer. Okay. It's minerals in a concentrated form that are very safe, non-toxic, organically based, and it helps the brain chemistry start working again. So all these minerals I stole from my body with processed foods and sugar are now starting to be replenished. So there's a lot of great things. There's one that's a little more powerful, if you want to call it, called Orchex. That's for like the patient that's below their top. They've been, they're like very anxious and wound up. This thing called Orchex is a miracle for those patients. Now there's one in between Mintran and Orchex called Minchex. So it's one in between, that we use. And so we have a bunch of other tools, things called Field of Flowers. That one always just makes me happy thinking about it. But that's a lot of anxiety out of patients just by using this Field of Flowers through the day. It's a homeopathic solution. There's another one called Calm 5. It takes the 5 most common flower essences that have a calming sense. And it's actually for the shock patient. They're like, something big just happened at that moment. The rescue calm or Calm 5, they call it, has a great calming effect. So there's tons of different products that we can use. We want to work with the health coaches on getting the diet so it's not stealing your nutritional reserves. And then we have nutritional supplements that'll help the body get the correct mineral balance to help bodies rebalance themselves again. That's and so we put that in connection with the great work you do with the emotional end of it, and they can actually start stabilizing and healing again. So it's a great thing with that. So
yeah, it's incredible how much you can just do kind of naturally with all the nutritional support, whether it's the supplements or just people's diets, and how you can kind of use that as support for your body.
100%. And then we talked about the movement, obviously, right? Getting movement every day. I love to see 20 minutes every day, just some form of movement. The body loves that; it thrives on it. So putting those three together are great things to do with that. So, hey, we have some questions coming in here. I'd like to add, you ready to field a question?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what's going on?
So the first question says, hey, Amy and Dr. Furlong, what do you do to keep emotional stable during these times? Okay. And Amy, I don't know, you want me to go first on that one or you want to take that one? So
sure, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the top thing I do for myself is I need my sleep. I always said, if you want to get any information out of me, sleep deprive me. I'll tell you anything. Just let me go back to sleep. So sleep's powerful. The next thing for my body is movement or exercise. Yeah. I literally commit myself to about 20 minutes of exercise, and it can be really light. I mean, my daughter would tease me. She'd come in the room, Dad, what are you doing? I'm exercising. No, you're just laying on that therapy ball. No, it's really. And so I'm actually doing things all the way up to a heavy aerobic activity. I just find some type of movement every day, which is great. So getting my sleep, getting my movement first thing every day. It's like my cup of coffee. And the third one, and this one is the king of all for my body, but for most bodies, I avoid sugar. It's like poison for this body. At the moment, it seems really happy, but the outcome is not happy later on. So it will steal those nutritional reserves I talked about. So sleep, exercise, no sugar is my number one thing against emotional stress during the pandemic. How about yourself? You got to get 1, 2, 3, anything that seems to work for you?
Yeah, I mean, the diet's certainly important for me. So kind of working on keeping up with overall diet plan and supplements to just have that kind of nutritional support as a baseline. But then think like also getting outside, especially now as it's gotten nicer out, getting outside, getting movement when possible, because that's very helpful for me. And again, I've mentioned, kind of how yoga is a helpful thing for me. So I've still kind of been trying to figure out how to make that work at home a little bit better, and how to incorporate that more, and the overall routine. So again, it's kind of sometimes the trial and error of figuring out like, okay, how do I readjust this? And what does my routine look like now? So, getting that in place is helpful too.
Yeah, those are great.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we got another question coming in. We had talked earlier on this a little bit, and I think this first one was part of that. How often should I do a breathing exercise? So using breathing for stress reduction, and how often should I do it? Yep. What's your thoughts on that one, Amy?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And breathing is, you're right. We didn't fully touch on that, but that's very helpful with the mindfulness as well. Our breath helps us to come to the present as well. So by focusing on your breath, you're focusing on the present. So you can do that. I mean, the amazing thing is your breath is with you all the time. So you can do it anytime, anywhere. And maybe just, because we're going to talk about that more, some helpful like breathing techniques that are helpful. Is
there a breathing technique you'd recommend? One that you share?
Yeah, I mean, there are several. So it's kind of like, okay, well, what works well for you? What's helpful for you? One that I practice a lot with some of my clients is like a 4-8, getting to like a 4-8 count breathing pattern. So usually we'll start like inhale for 4 and then exhale for 4. And so you're kind of like keeping it even. And then you'll slowly increase the exhale. You could do it slowly by, 1 each time, or sometimes then maybe you'll inhale for 4 and exhale for 6. And then slowly you're just...
I'm doing it. It's great.
So slowly you're kind of lengthening that exhale until you get to like inhale for 4, exhale for 8.
So you're slowing things down, it feels like.
Yeah, so you're doubling the exhale from the inhale, and that really helps to kind of signal to your, to your body, to your brain of like, okay, I can calm down a little bit. We didn't really get into much of like parasympathetic, sympathetic, and all of that, but so it can help. Right. Yeah, so basically it can just help it just tells your body, okay, we can relax, because we've kind of, when you're just constantly thinking about a lot of this, everything that's going on and all the news and feeling anxious about it, it can put us in that like chronic state of stress.
Yeah.
And so in order to kind of flip that off, again, breathing is helpful to be able to do that. And so whether it's just a simple breathing exercise like that, or kind of an inhale and maybe an audible like exhale, like that helps to kind of release some of it too. Some people like square breathing, but again, the idea is you can do it whenever, however often. I mean, maybe you don't want to be exhaling in the middle of something, but a lot of times
now without your mask on.
Right? Yes. So you can do that safely at home. But there's also a variety of ways when people are feeling really anxious and feeling like they can't, like that they need more than just a few times of that 4-8 breathing. You can do some other types of things that involve the breathing exercises, like different types of mindfulness meditations or yoga, or whatever it is that feels helpful to do that. There are so many apps out there. The Calm app, the Insight Timer, Headspace, that can help you with some of those things.
Those are great ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Hey, we got one more question here.
Okay.
What is the one dietary habit I should use to keep my emotional stability? I get to jump on that one, okay? You heard me speak about it earlier, Amy. It is sugar, or lack of sugar is the key. Okay. And again, the sugar will steal your nutritional reserves in your cells. It'll bankrupt them. Your poor cells are trying to have these complex biochemical processes going on, and they need minerals to do that. Every time I consume sugar or things that have sugar, the body will use those minerals to get the sugar handled. It sees it. The sugar comes in, and the body says, "That's my number one priority to handle that. I'm going to use whatever reserves I have to do that." So getting the sugar out of a diet is step one, and it can be done in steps. I mean, if I'm used to 5 cookies at lunch every day, if I went to 4, I'm going to start doing better. And eventually, if you want to get to 3, so there's a gradient steps we work with changing diets with our health coaches, with Chelsea, care practitioner, with myself, with our patients. Gentle, whatever the patient can agree to, that's what we do.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I think that also just makes me think about emotional eating and how that's maybe been a little bit of a struggle right now too, given everything that's going on. So sometimes, we're eating because we're feeling a variety of emotions, and part of it is that we don't necessarily know. We don't even know how we're feeling, or that's why we're eating that. But I mean, so the more if people can stop, before they're eating something and think like, okay, well, how am I feeling ahead of time, that can be helpful too, to sort of assess like, okay, is this actually, is that cookie going to like satisfy like what I'm feeling? Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling upset? Am I feeling sad? And is that cookie ultimately going to satisfy that? Or is there something else that, that I could do that might feel ultimately more fulfilling, of reaching out to someone, or, doing something else that might feel more helpful?
Yeah, that's good. Hey, we just got someone followed up with a different question. They asked, all sugar or just white sugar? And, again, in the world of change in a body and a life habit, habits are gradient. So the question is, all sugar, just white sugar? And the answer is, I would just start with added sugars. Okay, so your known sugar items, cookies, candy, cake, pop. I mean, I think we all know those contain added sugars. And so that's where we'd start with patients. Now, as the gradients get bigger and bigger, what we mean by that is a patient is willing to make more and more change if necessary. That's when we work with the health coaches. Now, there's a whole course on understanding what sugar is and how they hide it in our foods. But I would just start with the known sugars for most patients: candies, cookies, cakes, and pop. So that's the starting point.
Sure.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this, Amy, do you have any closing thoughts, and how do people get hold of you if they'd like to explore some more care or, understand your services? How's that work?
I guess, I mean, in closing, I just say, obviously this is, this is new to all of us, kind of what we're going through. So be kind and compassionate to yourself, and in what you're talking about in gradient changes, in the same way as, we're talking about the healthy mind platter and assessing where things are out of balance. Maybe choose just one thing a week to focus on, and start with that rather than trying to do everything all at once, because it's usually we can make more sustainable, lasting changes when we kind of just focus on one thing at a time, and work on finding that balance, because that can take some time. So so can kind of end with that. If you have questions or want to reach out, I'm at Minnesota Clinic for Health and Wellness. So their website is mnclinicforhealth.com.
Okay.
And then my personal email is arhoda, RHODA, at mnclinicforhealth.com. So you can reach me directly there or through the clinic. Yeah. And
Amy, we'll get some of these contacts posted with this in the future. I can tell you, I mean this seriously. I feel a lot of, feel like there's hope when I talk with you. I mean, like, I always believe there's hope, but even more. Nice job on that. That's great.
Oh, thank you.
So again, in closing, I'm Dr. Marty Furlong. We're at Metro East Natural Healing Center. And, where you can reach out to us, we're in Oakdale, but we actually have virtual services. Amy, do you guys do virtual services over the phone?
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. I was also going to mention that. So currently I'm meeting with all of my clients via telehealth.
Okay.
So we are doing that. There may be some like a slow transition back, but it probably will be a while, and we still should have the option to meet via telehealth. So,
Yeah, that's good.
so yeah, it's nice to be able to do that. So,
Perfect.
yeah, for convenience and if people don't feel comfortable going out.
That's right. Yep, that's right. And so we do the same thing in our clinic. We have our health coaches with virtual visits. We have our nutrition response testing. Chelsea and myself, Dr. Furlong, doing virtual visits too. So it's a great tool for some patients. That works great. We do see live visits currently in our clinic. We have all the personal protective equipment with ourselves and the patients if they're necessary, they wear them in. But our website is nutritionchiropractic.com. So that's great. Now, this was so much fun. You're really doing so much good information, Amy. I love it. We do have some virtual wellness series. We have a couple left, but we will be continuing about once a month after that. But our next one coming up is holistic dentistry with Dr. Amy Rhonda. Okay, she's my personal dentist, and the reason I asked her on because she has some really unique pieces how to keep toxic stuff from being introduced through dentistry. And actually, and they have great techniques. And so that one's going to be next Monday, June 1st, okay? At 6 p.m. We'll be working with that one next. So that'll be great. Otherwise, thank you, Amy. This was super. And your patients are in good hands with you, okay? So.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was great talking with you.
Yeah, very good. Goodbye, everybody. All right.